Hello and welcome to the Daily Comic and Collectible, episode 351. Now today, the collectible of the day is the Hasbro Toys Marvel Legends series Venompool Build-A-Figure Wave Morbius action figure. This 6-inch scale Morbius action figure is based solely off his comic book design and is superposable with premium articulation for displaying in your Marvel figure collection. Figure features a highly detailed design and comes with a Venompool Build-A-Figure piece, so you can create your own Venompool. Comes in a window display box and was released by Hasbro Toys. Now, the comic of the day is Spider-Man, Volume 1, Issue number 14, with a cover date of September 1991. This is part of the Sub-City arc, with story by Todd McFarlane, art by Todd McFarlane, and cover by Todd McFarlane. This story is titled Sub-City Part 2. We open in the sewers of New York City. Spider-Man has come to learn what's happened to a number of the city's homeless. There he's been swarmed by a group of underground dwellers calling themselves the Subhumans. These creatures are under the protection of Morbius, the living vampire, in exchange for fresh victims for him to feed upon. As Spider-Man tries to get free of them, one of the elders watches from the distance. He's upset to see how Morbius has influenced his people, making them as mad as the people who rule the surface world. Meanwhile, the wall crawler manages to leap up on the roof to catch his breath. Having overheard that the creatures serve a master, Spider-Man decides to find a means to get to him. Having had enough of the subhumans, the web-slinger leaps down and quickly webs up a few of their numbers. Using the subdued subhumans to shield his body, he orders the others to bring him to their leader. Sent in the right direction, Spider-Man gets far enough away from the others to drop his prisoners and continue on his way alone. However, as Spider-Man makes his way to the subhuman domain, he is unaware that Keever is following him. Along the way, Spider-Man is disappointed that his decision to wear his black costume didn't give him much of an advantage in the sewers, especially since the costume upset his wife, Mary Jane. Suddenly, his spider sense begins going off, allowing Spider-Man to narrowly avoid a collision with Morbius, who heads out to defend his people. Recognizing Morbius by the sound of his voice, Spider-Man tries to get him to explain what is going on. Unfortunately, Morbius doesn't recognize the wall crawler in his black costume. As Morbius attacks Spider-Man, he's confused, as last he heard, Morbius was living with Doctor Strange, trying to find a cure for his condition. When Spider-Man demands to know where the missing homeless people are, Morbius explains that he fed upon them because he fears his own death. When Spider-Man tries to convince Morbius to get help and attempts to appeal to his scientific background, Morbius refuses to listen. He is sick of the madness that comes from his condition and has set up a suitable life below the ground, defending the subhumans in exchange for victims to feed upon. Fighting off the wall crawler, Morbius explains that after Doctor Strange failed to cure him, he realized that there was nothing more to do than accept his situation. He begins to get angry enough that he's spoiling for a fight. However, Spider-Man has been holding back since he wanted to help Morbius, offering to get him help from the Avengers or the Fantastic Four. Morbius points out that the subhumans choose bad ones from the surface for his meals. Spider-Man reveals that they're nabbing innocent homeless people, and nobody's truly evil. The living vampire doesn't trust Spider-Man at first, but when the subhumans arrive to watch the battle, he asks his followers if what the wall crawler says is true. Morbius soon learns from Keezer, much to his horror, that the subhumans consider all people bad from the surface. That's when the elder of the subhumans speaks up, explaining to Morbius that his people have lived in darkness so long that they carried out Morbius's wishes without really understanding what he was asking. Horrified that he has killed innocent people, Morbius flees. When Spider-Man tries to go after him, the elder tells the hero to let Morbius go. After all, he needs to think. He then convinces the wall crawler not to turn his people over to the authorities, explaining that they don't have the mental capacity to understand the gravity of what they've done. Convinced that the elder can look after his people, Spider-Man agrees to let them go, wishing them the best. Leaving the sewers, Spider-Man begins to head for home, wondering if Mr. Fantastic can come up with the means of helping Morbius. Geek Fact: at the time of this story, Morbius had just recently cut ties with Doctor Strange, after living in his home for some time in Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme, issue number 10 through issue number 20, from November 1989 to August 1990. Bonus Geek Fact: Spider-Man mentions his disappointment in wearing the black suit, especially since the costume upsets Mary Jane. This is because Peter's black suit reminds her of when she encountered Venom for the first time in Amazing Spider-Man, issue number 300, released in January, but with a cover date of May 1988. Interesting ad fact: in 1991, when this issue was released, the Nintendo Game Boy was all the rage, and so was the release of this new game, The Punisher, where Punisher hunts down Jigsaw and his drug lords from New York to South America, with a special appearance by Spider-Man. With Spider-Man by his side, enemies will be given the ultimate payback, released by Acclaim Entertainment. Another bonus geek fact: Morbius was one of the characters featured on a series of Marvel value stamps in the 1970s. Morbius was value stamp number 75. And final geek fact: in an attempt to save his own life from a rare blood disease, Dr. Michael Morbius turned to a cure that used vampire bat DNA, but it mutated him into a blood-sucking creature of the night, also known as a living vampire. Superhuman vamp fact: a living vampire possesses several superhuman attributes, including super strength, flight, and regenerative healing. Unlike real mystical vampires, they're not vulnerable to the traditional weaknesses like a stake through the heart or religious symbolism. Morbius, in particular, resembled a vampire with fangs. His nose was flattened and appeared more bat-like, and his skin became extremely pale. That vamp needs a fake tan, and bad. Well, I'd like to thank you for joining me for another Daily Comic and Collectible, and I hope to see you again tomorrow. This is Cad Fan Comics Man, and I'll catch you on the flip. Over and out.